Hi everyone, I'm Andre. Welcome to Bringing Brookfield Zoo to you. Today, we are going behind the scenes at Hamill Family Wild Encounters to visit the Parakeets. Let's tune in as our animal care professionals show us how they care for and feed our flock.
Welcome to Brookfield Zoo's Bringing the Zoo to You. My name is Jill, and with me I have Olivia, and we are animal care specialists here at Hamill Family Wild Encounters. Today, we're in our parakeet aviary, where we're learning about some really cool birds. Parakeets are also known as budgerigars, and they're a small member of the parrot family. And you may be familiar with them from your visits here to the zoo, where you get to get up close and personal with them by feeding them on seed sticks. So today we're going to go a little behind the scenes and show you how we take care of our flock of over 500 birds. It takes a lot of work, and we do have to look very closely at the flock as a group and as individuals to make sure that they're all healthy. So right here we actually have our incubator where we house birds that are sick or not feeling well or very low in weight. So right now it's empty because we don't have any cases that require us to separate the birds, which is a good thing. But this allows them to be housed in a way that we can see them very closely. They're very close to a food source, and we can administer medication if necessary. We also have 2 parakeets that we separated from the flock, and we're going to show you how we distinguish between males and females, and also how we do beak and nail trims and do a quick little exam to make sure the birds are healthy. So Olivia's gonna take our first bird that we have here, and you can see her hands actually have tape on them to protect her because they're small, but their beaks are very sharp and very strong. And they can actually do a lot of damage to your hands if you're not careful. So there's a special way we hold the birds to be able to have control over them, hold them tight, but not too tight, obviously. So you can see this bird here is actually a female. And we can tell by looking at what's called the cere, so this part right above the beak. So in females, they tend to be like a brownish color. This one has this little bit of like buildup to it. And this means that this is a mature female. So some other things I wanted to point out on this parakeet are its leg band here. So every single one of our birds has a leg band that has a number, and it says CZS for the Chicago Zoological Society, and it's got some other information on there that serves as an identifier. So like I said, each bird has its own number, and that allows us to keep track of its medical history, if it's gotten treatment or if it's been used for breeding before. So we actually keep really extensive history on these parakeets. Believe it or not, even though there's so many of them, we have to be very careful to keep track of everything. So Olivia's going to start doing a beak and nail trim. So we do routine trims on these birds. We catch up birds every single day, and she'll trim her beak, and she'll look at her feet and trim her nails. And now she's looking to make sure there's no injuries, that everything looks healthy, and she'll just do a little quick trim. Now you have to be careful when trimming bird nails because they do have what's called a quick or a blood source, so they could bleed if we go too short. But otherwise this doesn't hurt the bird, and the same with the beak, it doesn't hurt to get trimmed, as long as we are careful not to trim too short. And these are important because it makes sure that the bird can eat well, it can groom itself well. So then we also look at the bird's wings. This bird looks good. And feel its keel. So we're trying to feel its body condition to see if this bird is at a healthy weight. And it looks good. So we're actually also going to weigh this bird as one final check. So even if the bird feels like it's at a good body condition, we're going to check its weight. And we have certain benchmarks that we look for so that, you know, this bird is at a perfect weight. And it looks bright and alert and healthy. So we have no concerns and we can release this bird. So usually in a flock that's so big, the birds that aren't feeling well will point themselves out to us. So either they're not feeling well, or they're not flying well, maybe they're not eating when the other birds are eating, or they have some other obvious injury that we could just pick out very easily. So part of our normal day is just walking through the aviary, looking at as many birds as we can, just to get an eye on any abnormalities we might see. So now this bird is a male, and you can tell it's very obviously blue, whereas the other one was that brownish color. When a parakeet is born, you really can't tell its gender until it's at least a year of age. So when we hatch birds here, we'll wait until they're about a year old, and then we'll catch up the ones when we see them and record their sex. So we're doing another beak and nail trim on this bird too. And you can see this bird also has a band on its leg, and both of these birds have black bands. But in our flock, we have different colors that denote to us the different ages of the birds in the flock.
Do the males and females have bands on the same leg?
Yes, we band them all on the right leg unless there's some injury or something that prevents us from doing that. We might band the other leg.
And how many of the parakeets here were born at Brookfield Zoo, hatched at Brookfield Zoo?
Exact numbers I don't know off the top of my head, but we have been open since 2015, and our original flock had somewhere around 500 or 600 birds, and we've been breeding every year since. And it varies between 50 to 100 chicks that we get with each round of breeding that we do. So you saw an example of a male and a female, and right here we also have one of the nest boxes that we would use to breed our birds here. So it's just like a square box that would hang on the mesh of the enclosure. And then if we look inside, there's actually this divot in the middle, which is really important because it helps to keep the eggs in a way that the female can incubate them. But it would also kind of deter the chicks from having issues like split legs or other things like that. So one of the most common questions we get is, do the birds mate on exhibit? And the answer is no, because we don't provide them with the right materials for them to nest out there. And the reason for that is if we had chicks that were fledging and couldn't really fly very well, it would be difficult for us to keep them off the ground so that they wouldn't get hurt. Because if you've ever been in the aviary on a really busy weekend in the summer, you know it gets pretty crowded in there, so you have to keep all the bird safety in mind. So we actually are functioning right now almost as if nothing changed. So every day we clean out there, we feed the birds on a normal schedule like we would. We feed them every hour, and that's to make sure that the birds aren't out competing with each other and everyone's getting enough food. The only difference is that we don't feed them off seed sticks all the time. We actually feed them on big tables, but their diet is adjusted so that they're getting enough food even though they're not getting fed on the seed sticks.
So how many birds are out there at one time?
It varies. Right now our flock is just above 500, and we probably have around 450 out there right now.
Oh, wow.
So every morning we actually would shift the birds back into holding, and it's one of the behaviors that we kind of keep trained with them. They don't all always shift in, but we usually get most of them. And then every year in February we do an annual shutdown where we catch every single bird and we process them, meaning we do beak and nail trims on every single bird to make sure everyone's healthy and there's no medical issues. And we just finished our shutdown for this year, and all the birds were looking pretty good, so we're pretty happy with how it went.
How many birds would you catch up on a normal day to do a check on?
Every day we catch at least 10 birds. We try to do it in a way so that we know we're not catching the same 10 birds. And we get a pretty good sample of the flock that way. So then when we do those trims, any birds that are low weight or have medical concerns are held back and separated, so either in the incubator or in a separate area, and they get looked at by the vet care staff once a week. So then sometimes we administer medications, or sometimes we treat the flock with preventative medications to make sure that we're all healthy and everything is good.
Are parakeets good pets?
They are. They're excellent pets. They typically live between 5 and 10 years, but sometimes they could live up to 20 if you give them proper care. But they make really good companions, especially because they're a good size. They're not too big, and they don't live as long as some other parrots that can live up to 80 years or more. So they make excellent pets.
So how big is this space back here? How many different habitats are there back here for the birds?
Yeah, so you can see we're actually standing in one right now, and this is the biggest one that we have. but we have 5 different divided stalls, and they can all connect to each other via shift doors that we have. And then you can see these doors over here will lead out to the exhibit. So when we shift the birds in the mornings, they all come in through this door and we ring a bell that gives them the signal to shift in. And then we have the incubator, and then we also have another separate side cage that we use rarely, but sometimes there's birds that need cage rest but wouldn't do well in such a big enclosure, so we might move them to like a different area just for a short time.
How many eggs would a parakeet lay at once?
They typically lay between like maybe 6 to 10 eggs, but we've had some lay as many as 12. It just varies a lot based on the bird or its history. So we make sure to provide them with enough supplements, calcium supplements, to make sure that they're healthy while they're laying eggs. So I think that's about it for now. So we wanted to thank you for your support of Brookfield Zoo, and thanks for watching.
There's a lot involved in caring for a flock of birds. Jenny has some ideas on how we can welcome flocks of birds to our neighborhoods when they return during spring. Let's take a look.
Hello Play Zoo friends, my name is Jenny. Thanks for joining us for the Hamel Family Play Zoo video series, bringing the Play Zoo to you. Spring is in the air, and so are the birds. Today we will create colorful welcome birds to hang in our windows for all the spring birds to see. Let's go! When we spend time outside in nature, we can use our senses to observe all that is happening around us. We can see the snow disappearing and the mud and grass reappearing. We can feel the air getting warmer. We can smell the rain and the mud, and we can hear the sounds of birds. My senses are telling me that things around me are changing. Winter is coming to an end and spring is beginning. I wonder, what are some other signs of spring? I remember when we made treats for the winter birds who stay here in Illinois, even when it's cold and snowy. Cardinals and juncos stay in Illinois all winter long. There are other types of birds who fly or migrate south when winter comes. Now that the weather is getting warmer in Illinois, we might start to notice more and more birds in our yards, parks, and forests. The birds who flew south for the winter are starting their spring migration. They are flying north and returning to Illinois. Let's create a special welcome for the spring birds who are returning to Illinois. All we need are paper, scissors, and things for decorating. First, fold your paper in half, like this. Turn your paper so that the fold is on the bottom. Now, we will create a wing shape on our paper. One way to create a wing shape is to trace your hand. Lay your hand on the paper so that the bottom of your hand is touching the fold in the paper. Now, trace your hand. You can decide if you want to trace it with your fingers spread apart, like this, or closed, like this. You can ask a partner to help you to make tracing fun. Now it's time to use our scissors. You can ask a partner for help with cutting too. When you cut out your wing shape, make sure that you don't cut the fold. We'll need that to make our flying bird shape. Okay, we have cut out our wing shape and left the fold. Now, let's open up our paper and voila! We have created a flying bird. Now we can decorate our flying bird any way we'd like. Let's get creative. I wonder, what types of materials can we use to decorate our bird? Now we're ready to hang our beautiful birds in the window. When the birds outside are flying, it can be hard for them to see the windows in houses and buildings because windows are clear. Sometimes birds can bump into windows and get hurt. We can help the spring birds by hanging a colorful welcome bird in the window. When flying birds see our welcome birds in the windows, they won't bump into them. We can make as many welcome birds as we'd like and add them to all of our windows. That was fun! Now our windows are full of welcome birds for the spring birds that are returning to Illinois. If you'd like to share photos of your welcome birds with us, send them to the address on your screen. And when you go outside, use your senses to find signs of spring birds and other signs of spring. See you next time.
Well, thanks for joining us today and exploring ways we can help flocks of birds. Look forward to seeing you next time as we bring Brookfield Zoo to you.